Good morning, Ryan. So look, thanks for taking some time out and getting involved in Business Owner Spotlight. Do you want to take a minute there, introduce yourself, just let everybody know a little bit about what you do and your company?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Scott, for having us. So yeah, my name's Ryan Lafferty. I'm the CEO of Diabeta Labs, which are a spin-out from the Diabetes Research Group at Ulster University. So really, we are developing novel therapeutics for type 2 diabetes and obesity, specifically looking at regeneration of insulin-producing beta cells. So that's kind of our work in a short nutshell, I suppose.
Yeah. So who would be your customer then? Who do you seek to sell to as such?
Yeah, I mean, compared to some of the other companies you've maybe spoken to, we're maybe slightly different in that, our customer base is, it's not as clear cut. So essentially, we're developing these molecules through, sort of cell lines and animal models of diabetes and obesity to a point where we essentially want to, look towards industry partners who can either come in as sort of co-development partners or will eventually sort of acquire these assets and take them on to the next level. So, our customer would probably be, sort of mid to large level pharma within the sort of metabolic disease space, but maybe not as clear cut as, we've got a device and this is, who we sell it to, etc.
Yeah, so you'll effectively try and develop this product to a point where somebody else can, a pharmaceutical company can buy it, put into their repertoire of offering to the market, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a monopoly in terms of when you get to a certain stage where it tends to be there's certain companies can only really take it past a certain point, so that would be our goal. So it's really a sort of licensing slash acquisition model that we're working off.
Yeah. And how long have you say you're spun out from the research program? How long has it been since you've incorporated the company?
So quite recently, to be honest, Scott. So I mean, I've personally been working in diabetes research for about 6 years now. So I originally joined the research group in 2016, I think it was, and did my PhD there. In terms of the actual company itself, we've only really spun out in the last sort of 6 weeks or so. So it's very early days.
brand new then. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? I mean, it's still interesting to hear, I mean, obviously there's been a journey to get to that point. So I'm interested to hear a bit more about that. So tell us about that. So 6 weeks ago, started this company. What how has it been, to get to that point? What's been the biggest challenge to actually get off the ground as such?
Yeah, I mean, although we're 6 weeks into this, really, I had been working on this as a project for the last, 12 to 18 months. So we were lucky through coming through the university to be placed on a program called iCure, which is funded by Innovate UK. So it stands for Innovation to Commercialization of University Research, which is a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And essentially, I was sent out the market in May last year, and it was really about validating that there was a market for the technology that we had. And the reason that I was kind of put there was that a lot of this was developed during my PhD. So there were therapeutics that I had, a lot of knowledge and personal investment in. So I basically went, taking this to market, speaking to pharmaceutical companies, etc., to basically show that we had a market and there was appetite. And from there, we were able to, progress through this program and gain some, startup capital. So, one of the main problems with, any kind of therapeutic research is how much it costs. Yeah. The startup costs are, they're scary. And it's a big challenge to sort of raise that capital. So, I mean, it was a challenge in terms of, validating the market and showing that there was interest, especially in a space where, there's certain companies really dominate the area. So trying to carve out a bit of a niche is quite difficult, but we were lucky enough to be able to do that. and then really securing that startup capital. So we were lucky that we were able to, go through Innovate UK to be able to secure that rather than sort of raising it all privately.
Yeah, so it's been a process of, is it like proven to Innovate UK and the market itself, is this viable? Is this a commercial product as such? And I'm interested, you talked there about your, carving out your niche. How did you do that?
Yeah, so I mean, it was really about sort of doing a deep dive into, what therapeutics are on the market, what mechanisms of action do they work through, and essentially what are their shortcomings. So we essentially saw that basically current therapeutics look to increase insulin output, which then decreases blood glucose, which is a very simplistic way of looking at how to better manage diabetes. But the problem with that was that basically it doesn't really look at the kind of long-term progression of the disease. So we decided to look at it in a more kind of cellular basis, where we said, right, what are the the cells that are producing insulin? What is the problem with them? What is the decline in them over the course of the disease? And basically try to develop molecules then that basically prevent that happening and sort of improve overall care. So, a big problem is that 80% of the costs of diabetes in terms of the NHS budget are spent on the complications of disease, which are, brought about through poor control. So we're trying to manage that at its root source.
Yes.
So
fix the real problem as opposed to the surface level problem.
Yeah, basically, prevent those happening, and that essentially will reduce costs massively.
Yeah.
So I guess it was similar to any kind of, looking at it as a product and essentially where are the shortcomings in it,
Yeah, and where can you add value essentially?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And I know 6 weeks in since it's been official, but how long, or in the last 18 months rather, what would you say you've learned about yourself on this journey?
It's a good question. I think it's one of those things you're just learning something about, both the market you're working in and yourself every day. I would say I've probably found out I'm more resilient than I thought I was, and probably more of a people person than I thought I was.
Yeah.
A lot of what we have had to do was just going out and speaking to, anyone and everyone in terms of, be it patients or prescribers or, pharmaceutical companies. And, not everybody is massively interested in what you're doing, and you have to kind of have a thick skin and just accept that you're not going to convince everybody of, that this is the best thing since sliced bread. We think it is, but not everybody can get on board with it. And it's just about, realizing that, when your race is running some places, I suppose.
Yeah. And when you say going out to speaking to anybody and everybody, was that to get a better handle on how you can make the product better, or what was the main view of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's that is a part of it. Basically what do we need to do compared to what's on the market to essentially improve upon it is a big problem. But also in terms of what do patients and prescribers actually want? What would be their if you were to say to them, if we let you design something, what would it be? And you essentially try to match that as best as you can. It's not going to be 100% achievable, but it's a kind of best case scenario.
Yeah, but if you have an ideal from your client and you have a really clear idea, as you say, there's only a few companies that maybe could take it on, that's the best place to start, isn't it? Super focus on who you're going to sell to and what it needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we've worked as an academic institution for so long where we had an idea of what that was, but stepping out from the university and chatting to people outside academia, it was kind of an eye-opener in terms of there's a difference there.
It kind of doesn't matter what you say or what you think, it's what the market thinks.
Yeah, I mean, it's that old cliche of the customer's always right. And although we don't have a defined customer, the market is essentially the dictator of it.
So it sounds like 6 weeks in, you've developed the product and you've validated it in the market. And exciting times. The company's out, spun out now. What does the future look like? What do you think the main challenges are moving forward?
I mean, the future right now is looking pretty bright. As you know, we're only really 6 weeks in, and maybe if you ask me in a year's time, I might have a different answer. But certainly, we're still in sort of a preclinical development stage where we're trying to narrow down some of the therapeutics that we have to basically take one of them to a first in human trial. That's our real goal, and it's our goal to achieve that within the next sort of 12 to 18 months would be, when we're looking to start a first in human trial. So in order to basically achieve that, we've got quite a lot of fundraising to do over the next, 12 months or so. With the current funding we have, it's going to allow us to finish the kind of the cell and the animal work. But in terms of achieving that human work, we're going to need to raise cash, in the next, as I said, about 12 months. So that, really keeping, investors and industry partners engaged and interested is, one of the biggest challenges we have. And beyond that as well, it's about finding who the right partner is, because there's a risk that we could get, a partner involved who maybe just wants to shelve this to, stop us competing with anything that they have along. And that's not our goal. We want to impact patient care, positively. It's not just about saying we've developed this piece of IP, come and buy the company.
Yes, it's a bigger purpose. It's an overarching goal as such.
Yeah, it's it's not just about licensing IP or acquiring IP. When we want to positively impact patient care in terms of diabetes and obesity.
And again, in the last 6 weeks, and I appreciate it's a short time, but what have you seen as the biggest challenges to actually getting the business viable as such?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably for me, an eye opener is being just how long all the little things take. Things like setting up email addresses and things like that you just actually never really consider when you kind of embark on the journey. And they can take sometimes an inordinate amount of time. Things like setting up your website and updating your website and things like that. So I guess how best to manage your time is a really important thing. I find myself that I have to be making a list at the start of the day or the start of a week, and then just sticking to it. Otherwise, you have 20 plates to spin, and you can't remember which one you were spinning, when you went to bed that night, or
it's the discipline of doing the important stuff that needs done at the right time.
Yeah, and prioritizing that as best you can. It's one of those things, everything needs done, but you can only do maybe one thing at a time. So prioritizing, that's really important, I think. So,
and it's interesting as well, when you've got to go back to investors to raise the next series of funding, it's almost like you've got to sell your business time and time again.
Yeah, I mean, it's which can be difficult. As I said, not everybody is as engaged in it as you would like them to be. For certain investors, it's just not right for them. So you could come to the end of a half an hour long call that you think has been going well, and then all of a sudden you just get a no. So it's just about being resilient as much as possible. And I suppose with those investor conversations as well, we've been starting them as early as possible and trying to gauge from them essentially what the investor wants from us. And rather than it being just us explaining to the investor, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, etc., it's more, what do you want to see from us, and we can do it for you.
Again, it's almost the same thing. It doesn't matter what you say about the product, it's what the market thinks about it. And the same thing then when you're going to an investor, it doesn't matter how good an opportunity you think it has to be right for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that they dictate that, really. So it's really about hitting the sweet spots for them, I suppose. Yeah.
So look, listen, I appreciate you coming on, and it sounds like a really interesting product and quite exciting times. Just right at the very start of this journey. I'm keen to understand that if you go back 18 months ago, when you really started, is there anything you would have done differently up to now?
It's hard to say. I think I probably in hindsight, it's a wonderful thing. I would have tried to be more organized about some of the actual structure, and I think of the business in terms of putting together a board and things like that. With all best intentions, we've kind of been doing that a bit reactively as we go along, and it's been a bit dynamic, but I think that's just the nature of starting a business. You have to be nimble, and you have to
fast.
your feet. So I think as much as I would have liked to have done that differently, in reality it probably couldn't have gone any differently.
Well, listen, man, really appreciate you coming on. I actually would like to stay in touch and see how this goes, and see over the next while. I think it's a really interesting journey you're on, and appreciate you taking the time out to come on board and share with everybody where you are so far.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. It was great to talk to you today, Scott. Cheers.
Thanks, man.
Cheers, all the best.